all of our friends. Hello, everyone. Welcome to LittleLab. We're going to give everybody just a few seconds to all file in. In the meantime, if you would like to introduce yourselves in the chat, if you like, you can say your name. If you would like, you can add your age and where you are viewing from. We'd love to be able to give you a shout out. I'm going to go ahead and introduce myself in the chat. All right. Going to give everybody just another moment and then we will get started. We have a really important topic that we're talking about today. Are you excited about this one, Jenna?
So excited.
Oh, that's great, because I am really happy to have your expertise here with us today. I think this is going to be great.
Oh, I wouldn't say I'm an expert, Peregrine.
I would. You taught me a lot. Hi there, Em and Rivers. Hi there, Leela. All right, I think we have so much to do today that we should go ahead and get started. And we'd love to give everybody maybe a shout out a little bit later. But please do, if you would like, continue to say hi in the chat, because we love to see those familiar names. It's almost like seeing a familiar face. But welcome to LittleLab. Today we are in the second part of our series, Safer with Science, where we are talking about the scientifically proven ways to help slow the spread of COVID-19. So last time we talked about masks, right? And how masks can help protect us and our community from the droplets, little droplets of teeny tiny droplets of water or spit that the virus rides on, right? And that's how it kind of gets between person to person. So we are talking about a different part of how to protect ourselves and our community. We're going to be talking about what happens if we get the virus on our hands and how we can keep it from traveling from our hands and getting anywhere else. So we were talking about how these viruses ride on droplets, and we know kind of what little droplets look like because we were using misters with water. But what does a virus look like? What do you think, Jenna? Is a virus really big or really small?
I've heard tell that viruses are pretty small.
I would agree. Viruses are really, really small. They're so small that we cannot see them. It's not just a matter of if we see virus on our hands, we can just brush them off, right? So if we look under a microscope at something like the coronavirus, it might look a little bit like this. It has all of these little spikes made out of proteins, which make it really good at hanging on. So it's really good at infecting people and making them sick. So this virus that I made is made out of Play-Doh and some pipe cleaners, but real viruses are made out of something a little bit different, right? If we were to look at a virus, we would see it's got all of its tangled up virusy information, its DNA, and it's all packed inside of a casing. And this case is made out of fat. It's made out of a teeny tiny layer of fat, and we call it the lipid layer. So we're going to do an experiment today to show us how washing our hands using soap helps break down a virus, right? So I have a few ingredients here that some of you might have at home. Are any of you at home going to be doing this experiment with us? What do you think? I've got just a little bit of oil. I have some just canola oil. Oh yeah, perfect. I'm so glad you guys are doing it with us. And again, if you are not doing it right now, you can always see what we're doing and try it out for yourselves later. So I've got a little bit of oil here. I've also got some liquid food coloring. This is some green food coloring. And I've got a little stir stick, but you could always use a spoon or you could use a popsicle stick, and it's just to do a little bit of stirring. And of course, I've got my soap. So I'm going to do this experiment. Part of it, I'm going to do it in this cup, but then I'm going to be using a plate, and my plate's down here on experiment cam. So I'm going to switch to experiment cam. All right, so here we are. I've got just a little plate here, regular plate, and it's going to help me with my experiment. So I've got my oil here, and I'm going to put a little bit of my food coloring in here. If you're doing this along with me at home, go ahead and just put a few drops of food coloring in there. So I'm noticing something right away. Jenna, what do you see as I'm putting as I'm putting this food coloring inside of my oil.
I'm noticing some really cool things. The food coloring looks like little balls, like little spheres, and I think that's cool. And it's not mixing in with the oil. It's not turning it green.
I agree. If I put this in something like water, it would turn the water green and I wouldn't see these little drops. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try stirring it. And you all can try stirring it too. What do you think? Is it working?
I don't see that it's working. It's getting smaller and smaller and smaller pieces, still not turning it green.
Yeah, I would agree with you. All I'm seeing is all those little drops of food coloring getting smaller. And that's going to work well for our experiment because we're pretending that all of these little drops of food coloring are little pieces of virus. So just like a virus, they're tiny enough, and in this solution, we can't just kind of wipe them away, and we can't just crush them because they're so small. But we are going to use something that's going to help break them apart. So once you all have kind of stirred your bits of food coloring so that they are tiny like this, I want to have you pour just a little bit onto your plate. Just a tiny bit.
It's a beautiful plate, Peregrine.
Why, thank you. So I've got my little blob of food coloring in oil here. And even if I give it a poke, right, it's not like those drops aren't really going anywhere. So I'm gonna add something. I'm gonna add a little bit of my hand soap, and this is just regular hand soap. This one is not even antibacterial or antimicrobial, because of course even antibacterial soap wouldn't help against a virus because a virus isn't bacteria. This is just regular soap. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add a little drop. And I actually already see something.
Wow.
I see my little virus starting to break apart. Now, we all know that if I just put soap on my hands, that won't help them get clean. So I'm going to start rubbing this in. And if you're doing this at home, we're going to take our drop of soap and we're going to start rubbing it in. And I want you to see, what do you notice is happening to the soap?
Wow, that is a huge change from before, Peregrine.
Whoa, I am definitely seeing a change. What about you, friends? What do you see? What do you think? Yeah, exactly. We are seeing all of it kind of, all of that green kind of explode, right? You can see all of that green, all of those little tiny drops like we had in here before, which we were pretending were the virus. They've all kind of broken apart. They've broken apart, and now all of that oil is green. And what that shows us is that our virus has broken apart, its case is broken, and that means that all of the virusy information inside can no longer infect anybody. That means that all of our little drops of virus here are inactive. They can no longer make someone sick. So we've got our beautiful kind of broken apart virusy information here. And what we would do next, of course, is that we would wash it all away. Right? We've been able to break that virus down. We are able to wash them all away, and that will keep us and our friends and family and community safe from the virus. Exactly as Max says, as an inactive virus is not a dangerous virus. If we can use our soap to break our viruses apart, this virus apart, then it can no longer infect us. I'm going to switch back to my face cam. So we talked about a little bit how soap breaks it down, right? It breaks down that casing, that lipid layer. As long as we scrub it in, then it can break down the virus and make it not dangerous anymore. But it's not just as easy as putting soap on our hands and rubbing it together, right? There's maybe a little bit of an art to it. And I realized that I wasn't even really doing it right before I learned how to do it. So I was hoping that my hand washing expert here, Jenna, might help me out with washing my hands. I'm not going to use soap and water. I'm going to do something a little bit different so that we can see how this technique will help get soap everywhere on our hands. So I've got some gloves and I've got a little bit of paint. And I'm pretending the paint is my soap. So what should I do first, Jenna?
All right, so you have your virusy hands. potentially virusy hands from maybe you just went to the grocery store. You want to make sure that you're not bringing anything from the grocery store back into your house and put it onto any other surfaces in your house. So you're going to turn on the water and get your hands a little bit wet. We can pretend that, yeah, that's some wet hands. And then you get your soap on there. All right. Ooh, white paint today. Okay. And then we are going to rub our hands together like this.
Then I'm done, right?
No, we still got some more. So you can see that your paint, your soap is on this side, but not this side. And there's some other blue areas too that I see besides the front and back. Yeah, you can't see that your in between your fingers aren't painting. So then I would recommend doing in between your fingers like this and still rubbing together like that.
Uh-huh. Oh, I'm getting it. Oh, I see it. So I can see the white. I'm pretending that's all my soap, right? Is getting into all those areas that I didn't get before. Okay, what next?
Let's see what your hands look like now.
That's pretty good. But wait, I still got all this back here.
Exactly. So you got to get the back of your hands too.
I think I need a little bit more soap. Too little soap. So I've got it in here, I've got some in here, and now I'm gonna get some, there we go, on the top of my hands.
That's
okay.
Great. Let's see what we're working with so far. Let's see all of your hands. I still see some blue. Yeah, so then what I like to do is get here where I can get underneath my fingernails and my fingertips, so I scratch the palm of my hand.
But not hard, right?
Not hard, just to get it all soapy and clean.
I touch
and then I'm also
oh sorry, I touch most things with my fingertips anyway, so I should be paying special attention.
Exactly. Pay special attention to those fingertips. Let's see what your hands look like now.
That's pretty good, right?
That looks good. I'm seeing some thumb. So maybe go like this.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's doing pretty well.
That is a good, yeah. And I think I see some right here too, but do you touch a lot of things right there?
Oh, I don't know, not usually, but you never know. If I'm picking something up, maybe I'd be using part of my hand.
Or when you came home from a friend's house, if you were in a pod maybe, or you were at the museum clubhouse and you kind of sat at the table like this, put your elbows in on your hands, that's definitely getting this part on the surface, right? So if you put your hands down anywhere like that. And I think that is really good. So we took a really long time covering all of our hands, and you don't have to wash your hands this long. You know what the recommended amount of time is, Peregrine?
Well, they're saying maybe around 20 seconds. So 20, 30, I think between 20 and 40 is what we're saying is probably going to do it for you. And that doesn't necessarily mean you have to, start counting as soon as you start. It's more like it takes about 20 to 40 seconds to do all of the things we just talked about. If you want to make sure you get your palms and between your fingers and your fingertips and the backs of your hands and your thumbs and the sides of your palms and even maybe a little bit of your wrist, right? There's just so many places we need to get that it takes a little bit longer than going water on, soap on, done.
I have a question for you, Peregrine. When you're washing your hands for 20 seconds or more, do you keep the water on the whole time?
Sometimes I do keep the water on the whole time because I figured when I turned it on, my hands were full of germs and virus potentially, right? So I left it on and I washed my hands, and then I figure I can turn it off with my elbow when I'm done. What about you?
I don't know. Sometimes I feel the same way, but usually when I get my hands wet and soapy, I turn the water off to make sure that I'm not using a lot of water. Just like I don't brush my teeth with the water running too. I try not to wash my hands with the water running.
Exactly. And come to think of it, just like you were saying, if I'm worried about getting my hands on a dirty faucet, then I could just use my elbow like I would when I was finished washing my hands. So we can turn the water on, turn the water off while we're soaping up, and then turn it back on. That's a great idea and a great point, because we want to think about keeping ourselves healthy, keeping our community healthy, and part of keeping us and our community healthy is to save water. So I love that as well. Friends,
I also have another question for you, Peregrine.
Yeah.
time when you're washing your hands? How do you know that you washed your hands long enough? Do you have a watch on all the time? Do you put on the timer all the time? How do you know?
Sometimes I just wash my hands to see just as long as I've touched all of those places that we just talked about. That's how I keep time in my head. But sometimes I also sing a song in my head, and it depends on the song. That's something that all of you could do at home. If there's a part of a song you can time yourself singing, and you know that it takes 20 to 40 seconds to sing, then that's a great song to sing while you are cleaning your hands. What about you, Jenna?
I sing a song. I sing the theme song of one of my favorite TV shows, Steven Universe, and that's about 20 seconds.
I really do like that show. That's a great idea, my friends. So I'm gonna go ahead and take my gloves off so that I can use my clean hands. We've talked about kind of how soap breaks down that outer casing of the virus. We've talked about how you have to rub it together to really break that casing down, which means you have to rub lots more places on your hands than maybe we think about. Last time, right, we talked about masks. This time we talked about hand washing. And next time we'll be talking about social distancing. But before then, we are going to have a very special guest on a special Q&A. So I'm going to be talking to our esteemed guest, Dr. Christine Daniels, who is a postdoctoral associate with the Duke Human Vaccine Institute. And she also helped us understand COVID-19 back in April when she was a panelist on our Parenting in the Pandemic webinar. So I'm going to be talking to her and asking her some questions about viruses because she knows so much about them. What I would like to ask all of you to do is to send in some questions for me to ask Dr. Christine Daniels. We will send our post-lab email to all of you, and if you can respond to any of the questions you might have after today's lab, any questions you might have about the virus in general, we would love to pass those on to Dr. Christine, and I will talk to her about them, and then we will post that Q&A on YouTube next week. How does that sound? Are you going to send in a question too, Jenna?
You know what? I think I will.
That's really awesome. Asking good questions is a huge part of science. So I would really appreciate it if you guys could send in some questions for me to ask Dr. Christine. In the meantime, thank you. Oh, thank you so much, Milo. I'm really glad that you enjoyed this and that you love seeing the museum. And I've really enjoyed doing this lab at home with all of you. So we're going to sign off for today, but we hope we see you next week for our special on social distancing. And we hope we hear from you and your questions for Dr. Christine. Thank you all so much. And thank you, Jenna, for being here with me. So long, friends. We'll see you next time.